Okay, so I want you to picture someone, you know the type. They walk into a crowded room, maybe there's a piano in the corner, and they sit down and effortlessly play a concerto. Or they glance at some complex math problem and, solve it while sipping their coffee. They just have that natural genius vibe. It looks like they didn't even break a sweat.
The effortless prodigy.
Mm.
We love them. And if we're being honest, we kind of hate them too.
We kind of do, exactly. We're obsessed with them. We worship a high IQ. We put talent on this massive pedestal. But here's the thing that always gets me, and I think it gets a lot of people. If raw intelligence is the golden ticket, why do so many of these gifted people just plateau? Why do you see the high school valedictorians stuck in a job they hate while the person who really struggled, maybe even failed a class, ends up, running the whole company?
It's the big question, right? It's the anomaly that just breaks that IQ is destiny rule. We want to believe that if you're smart, you win. But the data, well, the data tells a very different story.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into the work of the psychologist Angela Duckworth, specifically her big book, Grit. We're also pulling from a really fantastic breakdown of her work by Pinar Ezkint, which frames all this in a super practical way.
And our mission for this deep dive is, it's simple, but it's also pretty radical. We are going to dismantle that talent myth. We want to figure out the one variable that actually predicts success. And spoiler alert, it is not your SAT score. It's this really specific kind of non-glamorous blend of passion and perseverance that Duckworth calls grit.
So let's go back to the beginning. Because Angela Duckworth, she didn't just start out as this world-renowned psychologist. She was in the trenches.
Right. She actually started her career in a very different high-flying world, management consulting. You know, the kind of job where everyone's impressed by your business card. But she left all that to teach math in New York public schools, 7th grade.
Which, let's be real, is a battlefield. 7th graders are ruthless.
Oh, an absolute battlefield. And that is where she had her big aha moment. She's there, she's grading quizzes, watching these kids struggle with decimals and fractions, and she notices this pattern that just doesn't fit the model. She realized her smartest kids, the ones with the high IQs who got it instantly, they weren't always the ones getting the best grades.
Which is so counterintuitive. You'd think fast brain equals good grades. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work.
Exactly. She saw that some of those high IQ kids would just crumble the second the material got difficult. They were used to things being easy, so when they hit a wall, they didn't know how to climb it. Meanwhile, the kids who struggled at first, the ones who didn't get it right away, who got a C in the first quiz, they just kept coming back. They asked questions, they stayed after class, and by the end of the semester, those strugglers were outperforming the so-called geniuses.
So the real difference maker wasn't aptitude. It was just the refusal to give up.
She saw that aptitude and achievement are two totally separate things. But, a 7th grade classroom is one thing. To really prove this theory, she needed a much higher stakes environment, a place where the best of the best go to compete.
So she went to West Point, the United States Military Academy.
The big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, just getting into West Point is already this insane filter. You have to be a top athlete, a top student, get a congressional nomination. You're already the top 1% of the top 1%.
It's an elite group, for sure. But before they can even start their classes, they have to survive something called Beast Barracks.
The name alone just sounds miserable, like a horror movie.
It is designed to be miserable. It's this 7-week intensive training program. It's physically, mentally, and emotionally engineered to break you. We're talking sleep deprivation, constant drills, yelling, immense psychological pressure. And here's the kicker. A big chunk of these best of the best drop out before the 7 weeks are even up. So the military was desperate to know who survives.
Okay, so they bring in Duckworth, and I'm guessing the military had its own data, right?
Yeah.
They love data.
Oh, they had everything. They had this thing called the whole candidate score. It was a mix of SAT scores, high school rank, leadership potential, physical fitness scores. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought they knew exactly who would make it.
And let me guess. The guys with the biggest muscles and the highest SAT scores were the ones who stayed.
You would think. But when Duckworth ran the numbers, those scores were useless.
Useless, like zero correlation.
Statistically insignificant. Physical strength didn't predict it. Everyone there is strong. IQ didn't predict it. Everyone there is smart.
Yeah.
The only thing that accurately predicted it was this short, pretty simple questionnaire she developed. She called it the grit scale.
See, that's what's so fascinating to me. We always think success is some complex, secret algorithm, but the grit scale isn't complex at all, is it?
Not at all. It asks questions that honestly sound a little boring. Things like, do you finish what you start? Or, have you been obsessed with an idea for a short time but then lost interest?
It's measuring consistency over intensity.
That's the headline. The cadets who scored high on grit, they were the ones who survived the beast. It wasn't about who was smartest or strongest. It was about who had the stamina to keep going when all the external validation just stopped and the pain started.
Which brings us to the definition, because I feel like grit has become this buzzword, and it gets watered down. People think grit is just pulling an all-nighter to finish a project.
Right, that hero mode.
I drank 6 coffees, didn't sleep, and crushed it. I'm so gritty.
That is not grit. That's a sprint. And honestly, it's usually just bad time management. As the source material really emphasizes, grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. It is maintaining interest and effort over years.
Years.
Really
That's
right.
the key. It's easy to be obsessed with something for a week. We've all done that. I'm going to learn to bake. And 3 days later, the sourdough starter is dead in the fridge.
Exactly. Grit is holding on to the same top-level goal for a very, very long time. It's pure stamina. It's waking up on day 1,000 and still caring as much as you did on day 1.
There's a story in the notes about a tech entrepreneur that really makes this concrete, because we usually just hear the overnight success story.
Yeah.
But this guy, he launches his first product, and it is a total catastrophe.
A complete flop.
0 sales. His investors are ghosting him. His friends are all telling him, look, man, just pack it up. Go get a real job.
And this right here is the pivot point. This is where a high IQ can actually fail you. Because if you're really smart, you can rationalize quitting so easily. You can say, well, the data shows this isn't working, so the smart move is to cut my losses. Smart people are really good at quitting rationally.
That's such a good point. Smart people are excellent at rationalizing why they should quit.
They are.
Yeah.
But this guy, he sticks with it. But, and this is the key distinction, he doesn't just keep doing the same thing that failed. He iterates. He listens to the angry users. He changes the interface. He pivots the marketing. He goes through 5 totally different versions of the product.
And eventually.
Eventually, it clicks. The thing blows up, becomes $1 million brand. But the lesson isn't that he got lucky. The lesson is that he stayed in the game long enough to get lucky.
I love how the source puts it. Grit isn't about not falling down. Everyone falls down. Grit is the ability to get back up every single time. It's an act of resilience.
And it's not just in business.
Yep.
Look at the arts. The source brings up Isaac Perlman. I mean, if you've ever heard Perlman play the violin, it's transcendental. It sounds like he was touched by God.
Natural genius. You hear that and you think, oh, he was just born with it.
But his backstory completely destroys that myth. Perlman had polio as a child. He has permanent disabilities. He walks with crutches.
Right. I read that there were days he physically couldn't even lift his arms to hold the violin. His body was literally fighting him.
Imagine that. Most people would say, okay, the universe is sending me a pretty clear message here.
Yeah.
But Perlman loved the music so much that when he couldn't play physically, he would practice mentally. He would just sit there and visualize the finger placements. He'd hear the notes in his head.
That's incredible discipline.
And literally used his mind when his body failed him. And years later, he said his advantage wasn't his talent. It was his ability to keep going despite the fatigue.
Duckworth has a great line for this. Passion starts it, but grit finishes it.
That's it. Passion is the spark. Grit is the fire that keeps burning even when it starts to rain.
Okay, so I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, this is great, but am I just wired this way or not? Like, is grit just some genetic lottery ticket? Do you have the grit gene? Because if not, I might as well just turn this off now.
No, don't turn it off. That is the million-dollar question. And this is the most hopeful part of all her research. Grit is not a fixed trait. It's not like your eye color. It is plastic. You could develop it.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Duckworth identifies 4 specific pillars, 4 components that you can actually build in your life to increase your own grit score.
Okay, let's walk through them. This is the how-to manual. Pillar number 1 is interest.
This one seems obvious, but people get it so wrong. You cannot be gritty about something you fundamentally hate. You just can't. You have to be intrinsically motivated. You can't force grit for something that bores you to tears.
But here's the trap, and I have definitely fallen into this. People think they need to sit in a quiet room and just think their way to their passion, like it's going to hit them in a flash of lightning.
I am meant to be a potter.
Yeah, that almost never happens. The research shows that interest isn't found by thinking about it, it's triggered by doing it. You have to get your hands dirty.
The example from the source is e-commerce. If you're sitting there thinking, maybe I'd like to run an online store, don't just ponder it.
Right. Don't write a business plan. Don't design a logo. Just try to sell one single pen online. Just one. See how it feels to pack it, ship it, deal with a customer.
You have to taste the soup to know if you like the flavor.
Exactly. You can't predict what will capture your attention until you actually interact with it. So step one is just play. Experiment. Okay, so you experiment, you find something that sparks your interest. That leads to pillar number 2, practice. But not just any old practice.
Correct. We're talking about deliberate practice. And this is where that whole 10,000-hour rule gets misunderstood. It's not just about doing something for 10,000 hours. It's how you do it.
So the difference between routine practice and deliberate practice. Routine practice is me playing the same 3 chords on the guitar I've known since I was 16. It feels good. I sound fine.
You're just maintaining. You're not getting better. Deliberate practice is about systematically stepping out of your comfort zone and targeting your specific weaknesses. The source uses a great example: chess masters. A grandmaster doesn't just play games against people they can easily beat. That just feeds the ego. It doesn't build skill.
So what do they do instead?
They study the games they lost. They analyze the specific moves where they fell apart. They replay their failures over and over and over until they understand the error.
And let's be honest, that sucks. That does not feel good.
It feels awful. Duckworth calls it effortful study. It's frustrating, it's confusing. But that struggle, that's where the new neural connections are actually being made. If you're not a little frustrated, you're probably not learning.
So we have interest practice. Pillar number 3 is purpose. And for this, we get the famous parable of the 3 bricklayers.
A classic. You have to tell this story.
So you walk up to 3 guys laying bricks, and you ask the first one, what are you doing? He just sighs and says, I'm laying bricks. He has a job.
It's transactional. He's watching the clock.
You ask the second guy the same question. He says, I'm building a church. He has a career. He sees the bigger picture, takes some pride in his skill. But the third guy, he looks up, his eyes are bright, and he says, I am building the house of God.
And that's a calling. That is purpose.
The physical action is identical for all 3. They're all just spreading mortar, but the internal experience is worlds apart.
And this is so vital for grit. Because if you're only doing it for yourself, for money, for fame, you will eventually hit a wall where the effort just isn't worth the reward. But gritty people see their work as contributing to something bigger than themselves.
It's other-centered.
Exactly. When you feel like what you do matters to other people, it gives you this second wind. It's the teacher staying up late grading papers, not because she loves grading, but because she cares about that one student's future. Purpose turns a chore into a mission.
Okay, and finally, pillar 4, hope. But we need to be careful here. This isn't, I hope I win the lottery hope.
No, that's passive optimism. The universe will provide. Grit requires active hope. It's basically the same as Carol Dweck's idea of a growth mindset. It's the fundamental belief that my efforts can improve my future.
The source quotes Nietzsche here. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
It's about how your brain processes failure. Low-grit people see failure as a permanent condition. I failed the test, therefore I am stupid. Gritty people see failure as information. I failed the test, which means my study strategy was wrong. I need to change my approach.
So failure isn't an identity, it's just feedback.
Precisely. It's the power of yet. I haven't figured it out yet.
Okay, I want to pause here and play devil's advocate for a second, because whenever we talk about never giving up, I always worry about the person who's just sticking with a terrible idea. Is grit just a fancy word for being stubborn?
That is such an important distinction, because there is such a thing as stupid grit. The source explains this with a great comparison. BlackBerry versus Apple.
Oh, the smartphone wars.
Yeah, think back. BlackBerry was king. But when the iPhone came out with a touchscreen, the founder of BlackBerry just stubbornly insisted that people would never want touchscreens. He said, people need physical keyboards. That's our thing.
He doubled down on his original method even when the whole market was shifting.
That is stubbornness. He was rigid about the method. Now look at Apple. Apple is incredibly gritty. They are committed to their vision of think different. But they are unbelievably flexible on how they do it. If a design fails, they scrap it. If users want a bigger screen, they make a bigger screen.
So the rule is, be stubborn about the goal, but flexible about the method.
That's it. Don't fall in love with your first solution.
Yeah.
Fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve.
And one more reality check. Grit doesn't mean ignoring biology. I mean, I can have all the grit in the world, but I'm 5'9". I'm not going to be a center in the NBA.
Right. Grit isn't magic. But Duckworth gives us a formula that shows how talent and effort actually interact. It's a two-step equation. First, talent times effort equals skill.
Okay, so my natural aptitude times how hard I work gives me a skill. I learn the scales on the piano.
Right. But just having a skill doesn't make you successful. I know lots of people with skills who do nothing with them. So the second equation is skill times effort equals achievement.
Wait, so effort is in there twice?
It counts twice. You need effort to build the skill, and then you need effort again to apply that skill and make it productive.
That's mathematically profound. It means effort has an exponential effect on the final outcome.
Which is why a less talented person who works twice as hard doesn't just catch up to the lazy genius, they blow right past them. The math proves it.
You know, as we're wrapping this up, I keep thinking about why we resist this idea so much. The source talks about the romanticism of success. We love to watch the Olympics. We love the highlight reel.
Because the highlight reel is safe. If I can say, oh, Michael Phelps is just a genetic freak, then I don't have to feel bad that I'm not in shape. I can just say, I wasn't born that way.
It lets us off the hook.
Completely. It protects our ego. But if we admit that success is mostly about the grind, about thousands of boring, lonely 4 a.m. practices in a cold pool, then suddenly we have agency. And that's terrifying. Because if it's possible, then the only reason I'm not doing it is because I'm not doing the work.
Speaking of doing the work, the source ends with this really personal story about Angela Duckworth herself, and the irony is just perfect.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Growing up, her father was a bit critical. He would tell her all the time, you're no genius. He just didn't think she was the smartest kid in the room. He loved her, but he didn't see that spark.
And then years later, she wins the MacArthur Fellowship.
Which is literally nicknamed the Genius Grant. It is the highest honor for intellect in the country.
Talk about a mic drop moment for Dad.
But her response is the best part. She didn't say, see, Dad, you were wrong. She said, he was right. I wasn't the smartest. I was just the most persistent.
Wow. She proved her own theory on herself.
She did. She outworked the geniuses.
So what does this mean for you, listening right now? The source leaves us with this challenge that I absolutely love, and it's based on a 10-minute rule.
It's a really simple way to start building grit, like today. Think about one thing you gave up on because it got hard. Maybe it was learning an instrument or coding or writing that book. What would happen if you stopped looking for some shortcut and just committed 10 minutes a day to it?
Just 10 minutes. The bar is so low. You waste 10 minutes scrolling social media every hour.
It's not about the duration. It's about the consistency. It's about training your brain to show up, even when you don't feel like it.
And those small acts, they accumulate into something massive over time. That is grit. So that's your homework. Find your 10 minutes. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Keep going.
See you next time.